Very rarely will somebody experience digestive pains without it also being accommodated by changes in breathing, a change in heart rate, change in muscle tightness, and also a change in immune activity. And it's really important to observe when this happens because it can tell us an awful lot about the way that our body is currently functioning. Chronic symptoms will very rarely exist in isolation, especially when it comes to the likes of POTS, dysautonomia, long COVID, and chronic fatigue syndrome. And the reason for that is because many of these organs exist on the same neuronal pathway to one another. So when the function of one becomes disrupted, it's more than likely that the function of the others will also become disrupted. Now, where I see many people falling into the trap is that they end up saying to themselves, oh, my digestive pains, that's what's causing my heart to beat faster. Or the anxiety of my heart beating faster is what's triggering my digestive issues. They seem to think that one is the causative factor for the other, but simply the fact that they're existing alongside one another should be a real eye-opener for you and should hopefully allow you to consider two very important things. Number one is the fact that there is a key link between these systems, and number two is that there might be some sort of hub that is influencing the activity of both of these organs simultaneously. So let's discuss what this hub actually is. So we've got something called our central nervous system, and this is composed of our brain and our spinal cord, and we have descending nerves that travel down our brain into our spinal cord and exit our spinal cord at various different junctions. Once these nerves leave the spinal cord, they then venture out into something called the peripheral nervous system, which is basically anything outside of the central nervous system. And what they do here is attach to a blood vessel or an organ in order to innervate its activity, so whether its activity is heightened or suppressed. And the way it's able to achieve this is by the brain sending down things called motor outputs or neuronal commands. These neuronal commands can either be excitatory or inhibitory based on the area of the brain that they're originating from. So where excitatory signals are going to speed up and increase the activity of a certain organ, inhibitory signals are going to suppress and calm down its activity. Now, it goes without saying that both of these responses are totally necessary and even essential for a human body to remain in a state of balance or homeostasis, and for it to respond appropriately to any external stimuli. However, things can happen to the human body like trauma, stress, concussion, infection, or damage caused as a result of certain medication that can interfere with the brain's capabilities of actually being able to produce these signals, and what can end up resulting is chronically elevated or suppressed activity of organs throughout the body. And when this situation manifests in your life, it can really make day-to-day life a real struggle. It's kind of like attempting to drive a car while putting your feet on the gas and brake pedal at the same time, or trying to drive a car where you just fully put your foot down on the gas pedal and it keeps stalling the car so that it stops and then starts. Both of these situations are clearly less than ideal. But if you did want to understand what it fully takes to restore your body back to a much more functional state so that we can improve these signals being sent down by your brain, then I highly recommend checking out the Unbeatable Blueprint online course. This is where I take you through exactly how I made significant improvements in my own recovery so that you're able to copy the exact same blueprint and apply it into your own life to give you the best chance of obtaining long-term results. But I think what might be really helpful is if I give you an example of some of the chronic symptoms that I was experiencing for a number of years and what was eventually found out to be going on within my brain following extensive neurological testing. So coinciding with the title of this video, my heart rate was always elevated, particularly whenever I was in an upright position. My digestion was hyperkinetic, meaning that movement was occurring that shouldn't have been occurring, causing it to go too quickly and then spasming. And my immune activity was always heightened, causing me to experience multiple autoimmune flare-ups. and there was also a handful of other daily and debilitating symptoms that I was experiencing alongside this. Now, something that was discovered during my neurological testing that's very relevant to this situation was that my cortex, which is the big part here at the top of our brain, was receiving inaccurate and inadequate amounts of neuronal firing from the sensory division of my peripheral nervous system. And this is really crucial to note because signaling from the cortex helps to charge inhibitory motor activity that is being created by the area just beneath it in the brain called the cerebral nuclei or the basal ganglia. This area of the brain has direct influences on autonomic activity of organs, cognition, and the limbic system, and seen as its inhibitory activity wasn't being sufficiently charged, it meant that I was experiencing hyperactivity with all of the above. So along with a racing fast heart rate and hyperkinetic digestive activity, I would also experience tons of irrational thoughts with plenty of anxiety and panic, and I just always felt on edge 24/7. But as soon as these sensory systems that were firing into the cortex were identified as being dysfunctional, we then got to work on rehabilitating these pathways with very targeted neurological exercises, and that was in order to bring more coordinated sensory information into the cortex so that it in turn could charge the inhibitory activity of the basal ganglia. And I can't begin to tell you just how life-changing the benefits were of this on my all-round quality of life. My standing heart rate went from 125 to 75 beats per minute. My digestion improved massively and just felt a whole lot smoother, and I felt so much calmer and so much less anxious. And the best thing about all of this was the fact that the results actually held. So yeah, if you're somebody who's experiencing a similar set of symptoms to this, you might want to consider the possibility that your brain is having issues taking on board and processing sensory information, and it's related to the whole host of physical and mental symptoms that you're experiencing.